So at any time.
My name is Mike Schatz. It is September 30th, 2013, and we are honored to do an interview with Mr. Donald Olmstead. We will be talking about his Korean and Vietnam service. Good morning, Mr. Olmstead.
Good morning.
I understand you were born in Kay County, Oklahoma?
Yes, I was born just down the street, across the street from Brooks and Mulkey Creamery, actually, Old Paul Brook, in August 11th, 1934. My family has a long history with Tonkawa. My grandfather ran the Cherokee Strip Ranch. He actually homesteaded just south of Tonkawa, across the river, and ran a ferry service. And when the water was down, he actually, you could drive across his land, and there's a shale bottom there, which is very hard. And of course, the wagons and things on low water just drove across. High water, he actually had a ferry.
Were you a Tonkawa High School graduate?
No. Not,
Were you a Tonkawa High School alumni?
yes, I
Okay.
belong to the Alumni Association. I joined the Oklahoma National Guard Service Battery, the 189th Field Artillery. I was 15 years old. Of course, they knew that. I run around with all my buddies that were in the Guard. And when they were activated in 1950, August, they discharged me for being underage. At the time, I was 15. I waited 3 months. In November of 1950. I went to Enid, Oklahoma, where I got into the active Army, still underage, of course. And from Enid, Oklahoma, I took my basic at what is now Fort Carson, Colorado. And from Fort Carson, I spent a short period of time in Fort Riley, Kansas. Of course, I was infantry. From Fort Riley, I was sent to Korea as a replacement. When I got to Korea, we were just north of Seoul, and I was assigned as a Browning automatic rifleman with Love Company, the 7th Cavalry Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division. Of course, at that time, the lines were fluid. We fought back and forth a lot in the valleys, and not so much in the hills at that time. The 1st Cavalry Division was replaced by the 45th Infantry Division. We were going to be sent to Japan for retraining and then back into Korea. When the 45th got there, one of the members of the unit here, Jerry Weeks, got on the telephone somehow. I didn't know they had telephones. I was fairly young. He got a hold of my unit, and we were dug in up on a high hill, and the CP was all the way down in the valley. And they sent a runner up, and the runner came up and said, "Olmstead, you got a telephone call." Well, being young, and they fool with you a lot, so I didn't pay attention to it. I thought he was joking. It was about 30, 45 minutes later, another runner come up and said the company commander was really hot, that the telephone, well, radio, telephone, whatever it was, they said telephone, was tied up. He was talking to Jerry Weeks from the 45th Division. So then I went down, and he actually took me the next morning, and I got to go to service battery. I spent about 3 days there. Now, of course, I hadn't had a shower, hadn't had clean clothes. or anything or hot food for quite some time, so it was quite enjoyable. From there, they took my unit and shipped us to Hokkaido Island for retraining. As soon as we got there, I volunteered to go back to Korea, thinking that there was a good possibility I could be assigned to service barrack, not knowing anything about MOSs or anything like that. I ended up then in George Company, 23rd Infantry Regiment, 2nd Infantry Division. We, in July of that year, the fighting was, to say the least, quite violent, or well, we lost an awful lot of people. And we were going to relieve a unit on Baldy. And when we were going to relieve this particular unit, my company was scheduled to relieve the unit. However, my company commander shot himself. So they sent Fox Company up on Baldy. The second night they were there, they got overrun and almost wiped out. A few days later, they had my company, George Company, the 23rd Infantry. We were going to retake Baldy. It was a night attack. And it was confusing. We did retake Baldy. We lost a lot of men going up. The next morning, in my particular position, they were actually 5 of us. And as far as I know, and to this day, that was the whole platoon. I had a very best friend named Lower. Then I had a real good friend, I don't know his name, is Cookie. He was dead, but we pulled his body into the position. We had an old man that was wounded quite badly, and a medic that we had there eventually got hit in the jaw. Well, the old man and the medic were taken down by what we call Chogi boys. They were evacuated down the hill. That left Lower and myself. We did have a prisoner, and the prisoner was real nice up until later in the morning. It was probably about 9 o'clock when we had our first actual shootout with the Chinese, me and Lower. And they were just running across our front. Lower and myself eventually were sitting down, we're facing each other like this with a rifle. We looked, we saw this guy, this Chinese soldier. We watched him shoot us. That doesn't make sense.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense.
It missed me, but it hit Lower and shot his fingers off. And Lower, it's kind of funny. He told me, he said, Olmstead, pick up my fingers and put them in my pocket. I said, okay. He said, after I put a couple in there, I think there's only 2 off, he said, well, button it, because I don't want to lose them. Now, he left the hill at that time. I was left. You couldn't just leave a hill. That was called bugging out. And F Company, I had a great buddy in that was sent to prison because he left the hill. So I wasn't about to leave until at least something happened. I figured I was either going to get captured or maybe killed. But as they overrun my position, it was probably about 10 o'clock in the morning. And it was daylight, which is unusual. They would normally attack at night. They threw hand grenades in the position, but because of the body in there, it took most of the blast. And their grenades weren't real good. They were very sorry. But it did blow me out of the hill, or out of the position. I remember I thought I was up in the air, and the things on my mind was, I thought, my God, what's my mother gonna say? I came down, I rode back into the position, and by that time it was surrounded, and I decided to surrender. I held my hands up, and it was probably an officer. He ran up, and the only place I got shot was in my hands because I had them raised. I've been shot here. And he made him leave me alone after that. And then I was laying there, had blood. I was hit up under here and through here, and blood started running out of my mouth. I put my hand up, I did this. I thought, my God, I'm dying. And it came to me, these old Western movies. The good guy was laying there shot, and they was talking to him, and all of a sudden a little trickle of blood starts out, and he died. And those are strange things to think about at times like this.
How was your equipment? Were you equipped for winter fighting?
This was summer. This was
Summer,
July.
okay.
Yeah. We, of course, had all Second World War weapons, which the Second World War hadn't been over that long. But they left me in the position. I don't think they ever came back. I was in and out, in and out. The French battalion counterattacked that night sometime, and retook Baldy. And after they retook Baldy, they were checking bunkers and different positions, and they found me and carried me downhill to the American unit that was at the base of the hill. And of course, from there I went to the hospital. Spent a few months, and then I came back to the States. In fact, I got to watch the Tonka football team win state down at Stillwater. That's when Jim Bourne was quarterback, I believe.
How would you compare the North Vietnamese versus the Chinese training and equipment?
The North Vietnamese,
Or, I'm sorry, the North Koreans and the Chinese. How would you compare the two?
the Chinese were more disciplined. The North Koreans, they took few prisoners, almost none. But the Chinese, on most occasions, would take prisoners. The Chinese and the North Koreans did not seem to care if they died. And of course, American troops we'd like to live. So it looked like that they were just real brave soldiers, because they just kept coming.
You talked about your training stateside. Did you do any nighttime training that helped prepare you for that night assault on Baldy?
No. The only thing we did at night was the infiltration course. That was about it. They were training individual riflemen. And of course, I had already served in Korea, but I'd never pulled a night attack. I'd pulled daylight attacks, but not night.
How was the medical care in the field and in the hospital?
It was good, not like it is in Vietnam, where it was excellent. We could normally be evacuated within a few hours Um, My particular case, I was on a hospital train probably the next day after I was recovered.
You mentioned earlier that one of your commanders had shot himself. Was that accidental or was that intentional?
We think it was accidental. He was in a tent and he was fooling with a .45 and shot himself in the knee.
Okay, okay, that explains that. How long were you in Korea?
About 14 months altogether.
And what awards and decorations did you receive from Korea?
Combat Infantry Badge, the Purple Heart. I had 3 major campaigns, one of them being Operation Killer, where we actually give up land for bodies. Uh, the other decorations that I received there in Korea were just service medals.
From Korea to Vietnam, were you still in the military?
Oh, yes.
What units and what did you do?
When I returned from Korea, I got out of the military for 19 days. And after 19 days, I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, to go back into the service. Found out I wasn't qualified because I had profiles. And the old recruiting sergeant down there took me to one of the surgeons. And of course, I could work my hand real well at that time. My knees were fine at that time. And he took the profiles off, and I was able to go back into the military. I served there in the 522nd Infantry in Fort Sill. It was a demonstration unit. From there, I got orders for Korea again.
Okay.
I tried every way in the world to get out of.
What was the time period? What date, what year was that?
That would be 1953.
So the war was still going,
Hmm.
okay?
But they said I couldn't get out of going, so I got down to start clearing posts, and there's a little PFC there, and he looked at that and he said, "You can't go back to Korea." And they changed my orders. I thought they would send me to Australia. I ended up going to Austria, which was great. That was the greatest assignment I ever had, Salzburg, Austria. And I spent almost 2 years in Salzburg. We ended our occupation when the Russians pulled out of Austria, and they sent my unit to Italy, Vicenza. And I served about 1.5 years in Vicenza, Italy. Of course, came back to the States. I ended up at Fort Riley for a while, then Fort Benning, then Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I was airborne. And then I ended up in Alaska, where I spent 3.5 years. I returned to my same unit that I had left 3.5 years before in the 101st. And when Vietnam really got to going, they broke up the 101st as such at that time for a while and sent most of the people in my unit, I was brigade headquarters company, down to Fort Benning to start the 12th as the 1st Cav, which was an airborne unit, the 1st Cav. I was left there with no troops. I mean, there was really not much left. 327, it went as a unit, and they reformed once they got into country. I got orders shortly after that. Well, at first I tried to go with the 327, but I had already got orders to go to the John F. Kennedy Warfare Center in Fort Bragg for language school and customs of the Vietnamese and things of this sort. So they accused me of trying to get out of going to Vietnam because I wanted to go with 327 as a platoon sergeant.
What was your rank at this time?
Sergeant first class at that time.
And you finished Vietnamese language school, then you were then deployed to Vietnam? What year was that?
1955.
And what year, or I'm sorry, what unit were you assigned to?
I was what they call Ranger Team 23. Ranger Team 23 was a 5-man team. We were further assigned to the Vietnamese 23rd Ranger Battalion. A battalion of Rangers, Vietnamese, probably run 140 to 180 men, depending on our casualties.
How many were you? How many Americans were with those 140?
5.
5.
Mm-hmm.
Were you like special forces in that you trained your group in warfare, or were you instructors, or were you part of their fighting force, or what was your assignment?
We were a fighting force. My probably most exciting times, of course, I got awarded the Bronze Star for a fight in a village where we run into main force Viet Cong unit, main force, not PAVN. And they took myself and I picked out 3 Rangers, Vietnamese type. And we were going into Cambodia to strobe light some trails. Well, we were going to find them. At the briefing that I got, I was to cross this one river. And I thought, well, I don't need to shoot an azimuth or anything. Once I hit that river, then I can shoot an azimuth. Well, that night I must have crossed 10 rivers. So I was lost.
Just for the camera, an azimuth is a compass direction. It helps us
Yeah.
locate where we are, so that if we have to call in
And the
any
direction.
artillery support or helicopter support, we could locate ourselves on the map and tell them where to come. What part of Vietnam? You were in 2 Corps?
Yes, 2 Corps.
Okay.
We got into Cambodia, I'm sure, and we went into Overwatch, and we spent, probably, I think it was either 4 or 5 days in an Overwatch, watching this one particular very large trail. And I had a Tonkawa newspaper with me. And I took the newspaper and I put it in a plastic battery bag. And I left it on a smaller trail leading into this main trail that we strobe lighted. And we got compromised. Probably it was just a local couple of BC or something that we walked into. And one of the little Vietnamese Rangers got shot in the eye, which isn't really too bad. Sounds bad, but from then we got, I'm sure, back into Vietnam eventually. We were lost 7 days, moving very slowly.
What were the dates that you were in Vietnam?
From 65 to 66. And after my tour with the Rangers, I returned to the States where I was promoted to first sergeant. And actually had the jump master school and things in Fort Campbell as a first sergeant of the jump master school. Then I got orders again, of course. Your senior, well, your career NCO served from 2 to 3 tours, at least. And my second tour, I went into Korea, or Vietnam, and I was assigned to the same Ranger unit. I was so happy. Well, I got to, I think it was the training, and they made an announcement that they were going to have to divert some of us. Well, I didn't think I was going to get diverted, so I went ahead and got some sleep. About 2 o'clock in the morning, they came in and woke me up and said I'd been diverted. I said, no, you can't divert me. I said, I got to talk to somebody. And they said, well, you had a chance when they told you people was going to be diverted. You should have did it then. Nobody to talk to. They put me on a plane and sent me to the 1st Infantry Division down in 3 Corps. Well, military capital, really. When I got there, the funny thing, they were going to send me to Danger University. Now, Danger University was a little 2-week course that they gave everybody coming into Vietnam. Now, some of our replacements, especially like for Fort Dix, were poor trained. Now, those kids didn't know a claymore front or back. The ones from Louisiana were great as far as training out of Fort Polk. They sent me up to my rear, which was 2nd and the 2nd Mech Infantry. It turned out to be one of the high points, I guess, of my career, even though when I first got there I had a bad attitude. We fought some really bad battles. The thing about a Mech Infantry unit, when you're sweeping across and on line, they can't outrun you or outwalk you. So most of the time they are forced to fight. And some of the real memorial, as far as memory of the battles, was it started in May up at Hancock. The NBA were relieving a division. A division was coming in, a division going out. We got caught in the middle of the relief. On the 24th of May, the 2nd of the 2nd made contact with an NBA battalion or regiment, not sure. My unit on that day happened to be on a different mission, and when they got in to this big battle, they called for my unit to come in and reinforce. We came in from a different direction and drove into their heavy weapons unit, where they had the recoilless rifles, the 51 machine gun for ground mounted for air, and we drove into the back of that. At that particular day, I lost my company commander. We were standing together on a track trying to see what was, it was so much smoke when you get one of them firefights. It's hard to actually know what's going on. I lost him, and I lost one of my lieutenants, and I don't remember how many wounded I had that day. It wasn't too many on this particular day. But the funny thing, we had a battalion commander. His name was Colonel McKenzie. We called him Birdman. Well, now he never got in a bird, don't get me wrong. He fought on the ground right beside us. He was something else. When he called us to come and reinforce, his orders was ride to the sound of the guns. We broke contact that evening late, and I lost one of my tracks that rolled into a ravine. And I was actually company commander that night. My company commander wouldn't let me evacuate him until we pulled back into an area where we could set up a perimeter. But he wouldn't turn it over to, I only had one more lieutenant. Out of the, of course, you broke down three rifle and a weapons platoon. And I got to be company commander for one night. The next morning, I got the bravest little young first lieutenant I ever saw in my life. Me and him today are like this. He came in and took the company. We swung back around that day and was coming back into the contact area. And we got to looking, and you never see this. They had the NVA bodies laying out about 5 meters apart, completely equipped, everything. Rifles, little helmets, their backpacks. So of course, my people jump off the tracks and start running up there. Well, they had claymores in the trees. And these people were dead that they were running up to. So they pulled us into this ambush. And on that particular day, I guess I only had one kill, spec 4 walls. I had about 18 wounded. But Birdman, I'll never forget this till the day I die. He came up behind us and he saw the wounded, and I wasn't there at the time. I was up towards the command track, and he sent for me. So I go down and I see his track, and I go down. Of course, I'm bent over. I mean, there's bullets going through the air. He's on that track. He stands up at attention. He looks down at me, and he called me old soldier. He says, "Old soldier, don't you know how to report to your battalion commander?" And I figured, well, he can do it, I can do it. I stood up at attention, gave the greatest salute. "Sir, First Sergeant Olmstead, B Company, second of the second, reporting as ordered." And I didn't drop my salute after he did.
That's protocol.
On top of that track were 2 officers from England, English officers, and they were laying flat on top of his track. He gave me an order, I did get decorated for it, to get my wounded evacuated. We had seen activity to my rear, and there was no way that we should go back there with just a medic track. And I had 2 tracks, a medic and my track. And the only place I could see was actually where the fighting was, way down to the left. So I thought, well, and I had a kid that had his arm blowed off. He did it with a law. It had slipped out, he reached his hand back, he pushed it in, and off it went. And I had a plasma bottle, and I was on the back of the deck holding it up, and he was laying inside the track. And we actually went through the where the fighting was and hung a left. And we're going down through there. I didn't think I was going to get killed. I thought I was going to get shot, though. And I just was waiting to feel how much it was going to burn. And I was just on the back holding that thing up. But we got down there, and we got all of our wounded and things out. After that, this was a long combat deal. It was a Battle of Anlaw, which it turned out to be. Now for the 24th and 25th, all of the unit, 2nd of the 2nd, and the attached units received a, well, it's this medal here, it's equivalent to a Silver Star, but it's given to the unit as a whole. And on the 6th of June, my unit was at Thunder 4, and I was sitting in my track I was in charge of getting all the tracks fueled up and checking with the platoon sergeants, making sure that they had everything they wanted. And as we were sitting there, 4 mortar rounds came in, 60 mortar rounds. And I just happened to be facing, I had a huge map on my fuel tank and had grease pencils where I'd marked stuff. And I heard the counter battery give a coordinates, and I marked it. And then they gave another coordinates. Oh no, they said correction, correction. And they gave another coordinates, and I marked it. That is exactly where we got it, for that second one. We were set up, not knowing it. We drove in online. We didn't actually, in a straight line, column. We didn't actually go online like we should have, knowing they were there, but we didn't know they were there. I didn't get a chance to talk to the company commander before we moved out. But as we moved out, there was a trash dump. This trash dump, an American trash dump, always had all kinds of Vietnamese in it. There wasn't one Vietnamese in that trash dump. There was a bicycle, that was it. So as we went up this road, it happened about 2.5 miles from Thunder 4, and it was all open from where we actually made contact back to Thunder 4. There was no rubber. As we went up this road, all my kids started saying, "Watch your ass, watch your ass, watch your ass." They started throwing C ration box up on the side of these tracks. We never rode in them, because when a mine hit them, if you're in them, it really messes you up. But if you're on top, it just, a lot of times, just blow you off. And as we drove in, the first element actually got all the way to this NVA unit CP. They were so expecting us to come in. They had a minefield laid for us. But since we went straight down the road, we missed the minefield because we didn't do what they, well, makes sense, we would have went on, online. We ended up that day killing, I think the body count was 126. The proud thing in my unit, I had 4 prisoners. Even as bad as we were hurt, they still had humanitarian enough that once these guys quit, they took them prisoner. I lost my finest lieutenant that day. He was killed, Lieutenant Barbie. 250 gunners on the tracks were hit with RPGs, direct hits. And the last one I had killed, it was because they wanted a body count. So they sent them in to count, and there was one of them still alive. He raised up and from a position and shot this kid, Sergeant Lehman. And I didn't think he was hurt bad. I know he was shot through here. They had him on a stretcher, and he's sitting up, and he's smiling, talking, going on. He looked at me and he said, "Hey, Top, I'm getting over on you. I'm gonna be going home right out of the hospital." And he's actually smiling, and he died. The bullet got his liver. Wounded that day, I can't tell you how many. When we got back in, out of that particular battle, well, first, I was decorated there. My headquarters mortar platoon things were cut off. And we eventually fought and got enough perimeter that we could get our mortars set up. And we pulled back in off of that. The thing that saved us, I had 3 tanks with us. All 3 were knocked out. Now, one of them would still run.
Was that the M48?
Mhm.
Okay.
The one that was still run was, the platoon sergeant had it, Sergeant Corn. And Sergeant Corn had his main gun shot out. His, the Apex gun, it was shot out. His 50 was shot off of the tank, and the tank was still running. And he was still right up there with it.
How much total time did you spend in Vietnam? How much total time did you spend in Vietnam?
About 2 years, 2 months,
And,
with the 2 tours.
and what was your rank?
My first tour with the Rangers, I was sergeant first class. My second tour with the 2nd Mech, I was the first sergeant of Bravo Company, second of the 2nd.
Now, the 5 Bronze Stars, were all those in Vietnam, or was one of those in Korea?
All in Vietnam.
All in Vietnam. How would you rate the NVA and the VC as far as equipment and training? Were they tougher than the Korean War veterans, or?
Yes, they were. They were tougher. They had good equipment. The Ray K was an excellent rifle. They got resupplied some way very well. I mean,
Ho Chi Minh Trail. Yeah.
the VC, now you had different VC. You had the little local VC, then you had the main force VC. The main force VC, they were so-so. Up against a mech company, they couldn't hold. The NVA had a hard time doing it. In fact, we were never defeated by them the times we fought in the 2nd of the 2nd.
Did you come across any NVA armor?
No. We'd heard rumors of it, but this was up in 2 Corps early. We heard rumors that they had some mechanized equipment, but we never saw it.
How would you rate the medical care?
In Vietnam, excellent, really excellent. Our chopper pilots were great. Those, and I'm going to call them kids because that's what they were. They were 18, 19, 20
Warrant
years
officers.
old. That's it.
Yeah.
And they would come in regardless of how hot the landing zone was. They'd come in. And I know they just hold their breath, closed their eyes, and landed that thing.
When you came back from Vietnam, were you still in the military?
Oh, yeah.
Did you get out?
No, I stayed. Believe it or not, with my 9th grade education, I taught at Kansas State University for 7 years. I taught in the military history department. Now, of course, I went to a lot of schools. If you go in the Army, don't think you'll quit going to school. That's not true. I taught, we had to change the name of it from leadership to personnel management. We still had the little demonstrations going on. I taught topography, which was actually map reading. I taught MS 101, 102. And the funny thing about their little demonstrations was one morning I went in and they had a casket. They'd made it out of cardboard. And they had it there and they had this person in it. And the rest of them are all dressed in black like this. So I hope the office, when they came back, asked them if they'd like some coffee or a soft drink or something. K-State wasn't real active, I don't think, in all that. They had a little, but not a whole lot.
How was your reception home after the Korean War, and how was it after the Vietnam War?
After the Korean War, the way I came home, there was just nobody. You just came home.
Nothing.
That was it. No bands, nothing, you know.
The Forgotten War.
Yes, when I came back from Vietnam, my second tour, I had heard all these stories. And I got in the airport in Los Angeles, and of course in uniform. And they had a lot of people living in the airport. They had little backpacks and all that. And I asked one of the security guards, I said, what in the hell are they doing in here? He said, well, if we don't bother them, they don't vandalize the place, they don't start any trouble, so we just leave them alone. Well, I went from one end to the other, kicking their backpacks, just daring them to get up, because I'd heard these stories about them spitting on people, but they didn't get up.
Have you been to any reunions?
Yes. I make the 1st Infantry Division reunion every year. We actually have two. The 2nd Infantry has a small one in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And we have a big one every year. It moves. And this coming year it'll be in Orange County. Last year it was in Florida. I'm still active as far as military. I have the honor of being the Honorary Command Sergeant Major of the 2nd of the 2nd Infantry. My duties are to assist the rear detachment at Fort Knox any way I can, to visit hospitals, the wounded, and to attend funerals. So far, we have not had a funeral. So that worst part of that particular duty hasn't happened yet. They've been there about 4 months now in Afghanistan, and the particular mission they got, I don't see how we're going to be lucky for 12 months.
What have you done since you've been back from Vietnam? What kind of a career have you had?
I moved to Las Vegas, and when I got to Las Vegas, I interviewed for a job with Clark County Social Services in transportation, and I ended up, after 24 years with Clark County, I was in charge of purchasing, building maintenance, transportation, publications, everything except actually dealing with the clients. I just retired from there 2 years ago, and I opened up a tow truck company in Las Vegas, which has done very well. I'm the absentee owner. I don't even go down there. I turned it over to a stepson.
Mr. Olmstead, it's been an honor to visit with you today. For the Korean War, I want to say I thank you for your service, and for the Vietnam War, I want to say welcome home. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.